folks? Welcome back to the show. So get a load of this. Virginia Giuffre, probably the most famous Epstein victim and Prince Andrew accuser. The reason she's the most famous is she's the one in the infamous photograph with Prince Andrew that was taken at Ghislaine's place, where Prince Andrew has his arm around her and he has this stunned look on his face like, why are you taking a picture of me right now? Are you kidding me? Out of all of the moments to snap a picture of me, this is by far the moment I prefer the least. And Ghislaine's off to the side. And if you look at the smile on Ghislaine's face, there's a hint of duper's delight. I think she's thinking, this is it. This is as good as it gets. If you're running a sexual blackmail operation, a honeypot trap to catch powerful figures in order to control them, this is as good as it gets. A prince, a member of the royal family, is standing in my kitchen with his arm around an underage girl, and Jeffrey Epstein snaps the picture. Imagine being Prince Andrew and seeing the flash of that camera and knowing all the way down to the pit of your soul that life will never be the same. With the flash of that camera, everything from that moment forward is different. And he probably tried to shake it off and minimize it. It's no big deal. He took a picture. We're having fun. Probably tried to not think about it, enjoy the rest of the evening. But you would know with that flash, everything has changed. Well, 2 days ago, Virginia Giuffre was hit by a bus. A school bus traveling approximately 70 miles per hour smashed into her. She made a post from the hospital looking like she just got hit by a bus. Heartbreaking stuff, saying because of the accident, her kidneys are failing. They gave her 4 days to live. She's ready to go. She just wants to see her babies again, and they're transferring her to some other hospital with specialists. I don't know anything about kidney failure, but there was a number of comments on the video that I watched saying it's a little weird with as young as she is. They're not trying dialysis, or they're not trying this or that. They're just, yep, you got 4 days to live. Your kidneys are toast. Sorry. And it begs the extremely interesting question. Was this just a freak, tragic school bus tearing ass going 70 miles per hour and just happens to hit the most famous, outspoken Epstein victim and the person at the center of the most embarrassing scandal the royal family has had to deal with in probably a generation? Incredibly embarrassing for the royal family, the whole thing. It totally ruined Andrew's life. He got stripped of his duties and his titles. Who knows what? He probably just sits in the back shed in the back garden, wonders what it could have been. Remember that interview that Prince Andrew did in 2019? If I'm guilty of anything, it's of being too honorable. If I remember correctly, he had to pay Virginia Giuffre a few different settlements over the years, an undisclosed settlement here and some other settlement there. So was this just a freak accident, or was the royal family and Prince Andrew, were they, you know what, you think you can just totally ruin me, where I just have to sit in the back shed and twiddle my thumbs with no titles and no duties and just enjoy the money I gave you and it's just going to be a happy life? You think that's how it's going to be? Or do you think the people that are behind Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's sexual blackmail operation is real? You think they're just going to say, yeah, just be the most outspoken poster victim of this whole thing and nothing is going to happen to you? I mean, it could be either one. One thing that popped into my mind back when, I think it was when Epstein was arrested, or it could have been when Ghislaine was going through it, but I remember there was a story of one of the victims saying, Ghislaine threatened me, saying, oh, you go on a jog every day on Riverside Drive in Manhattan. Interesting. Yeah, it would be really sad if a car ran you over and killed you if you ever talk about any of this. And she's like, okay, yeah, I definitely get the hint. And all of this stuff with like the Epstein files being released and it being comically stupid publicity event. Hey, look it's in a blue binder now, so that's cool. And then now with Virginia Giuffre being hit by this mysterious bus going 70 miles per hour. A month ago, I'm covering the P. Diddy story, which is a sexual blackmail operation to control powerful figures in the music business. Think, if you get to choose who wins the Grammy, that's insane power. You can make careers, you can ruin careers. So I'm covering that story, and I had been thinking, why are people in power, why do they end up so weird and bizarrely evil? And I had been thinking about it, and I found a theory, a Daryl Cooper theory on one of his podcasts. I talked about this on my last P. Diddy video, but the theory goes is the people that make it into power, they end up hating themselves for what they had to do to get the power. They hate the game for what it made them do to get the power. Deep down in their bones, they know they're unremarkable and unimpressive and don't deserve this great power any more than anyone else would. And because of the multiple angles of imposter syndrome and the self-hatred and the hatred for the game all swirling around in their head, it makes them weird and evil and depraved. But I'm covering that story thinking I probably was never going to do an Epstein or Ghislaine video again. I'm happy with my coverage. Didn't seem like much was happening with it. But I wanted to understand the whole sexual blackmail thing more. And I found an Ian Carroll video where he recommends like the book of all books about it. If you don't know who Ian Carroll is, he's shot to stardom recently with his TikTok videos. The premise of his show is follow the money. So it's like a horizontal TikTok video, and he has like the information behind him, and he'll be like, so this guy, guess who he works for if you follow the money? And his videos have been doing really well. Well, his Epstein videos like blew up. He's kind of become the guy for the Epstein story recently, but he's very open that everything that he uses to make his Epstein videos, which blew up, his whole worldview, all of the information that he uses to make his videos come from this book, which is called One Nation Under Blackmail, the Sordid Union Between Intelligence and Organized Crime That Gave Rise to Jeffrey Epstein, by Whitney Webb. And Whitney Webb should definitely win an award for this thing. The amount of books that Whitney Webb had to read in order to put this book together is really inspiring, to be honest with you. But it's not an easy read by any means. I downloaded the audiobook a month ago thinking, this will help as the P. Diddy story is happening. This will help my coverage understand the whole bizarre world of the sexual blackmail operation, which has been used long before Epstein. The amount of sexual blackmail to control powerful figures that have been used for the past 100 years and probably more will blow your mind. If you want to understand all this stuff on a level you never thought possible, get Whitney Webb's book. But I got it a month ago, the audiobook. It's 35 hours just for the first section. There's a whole nother one. I think I'm 15 hours or maybe even a little bit more, and I'm not even to the point Jeffrey Epstein is in the picture yet. I think I'm in the early 1970s. Whitney Webb starts 100 years before Epstein's even in the picture, and it's insanely detailed. There's so many names. A lot of the storylines, I'm like, I just don't really know what's going on here. But there's the average person understands the whole, history of America and everything. It's still very interesting at times, but like the point I'm at right now is like Roy Cohen is really powerful here in New York City, and they're trying to figure out a way to ruin Kennedy. And but anyway, I'm thinking this is going to make my coverage of P. Diddy a lot better, but then all of a sudden they're going to release the Epstein list. It's happening. That comes out. It's comically stupid. There's whole pages blacked out. It doesn't give everybody the feeling of like, all right, the information's out. It's the same like, what? what was that? It was almost funny watching the Law and Crime guy the day after the binder of the new Epstein list is released, trying to make it seem like the big story that everybody was wanting it to be, and it just wasn't. And also, regarding the list, there's been unofficial lists out for years, and the people on this list, the thing about it is if there's no arrest, it's just a list. And and most people, unless you're really knowledgeable about all this stuff and politics and really study it, the average person is probably going to recognize maybe the top 10 names that we all have known and been talking about for years. And then after that, it's just like, who's that guy? And so you can put, hey, another list, a better list, a list in a binder. That's something. But until there's an arrest, it's just a list where for a few days, everybody goes, oh, the same names we've been talking about for years, Underwear Dershowitz, Bill Gates, Clinton, the whole thing. And then it's like, oh, all right, well, time has moved on. But anyway, so I'm slogging my way through Whitney Webb's book, and the list comes out. And now the most famous victim is hit in this crazy bus accident. What are the chances that someone gets hit by a bus in life? And then what are the chances it's that person that's accused and talked about some of the most powerful people and intelligence agencies in the whole world? It's a little bit hard to say, yeah, well, it seems like just a weird coincidence, and to move on. But when you really look into this, when you read that book and you start, I've kind of became obsessed with it again. It's very clear that Epstein and Ghislaine were working with the Israeli government and the CIA, most likely. And some people call Epstein an asset to Israel. Some say he's full-blown Mossad. Some people word it he was just working with. But it's really hard. It becomes all right, this was definitely intelligence agencies getting sexual blackmail on powerful people to make sure when a big decision needs to be made, everybody falls in line and goes in the right direction. There's a quote from former Israeli spy, his name's Ari Ben Manish, that says, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell worked for the government of Israel to blackmail American politicians with recorded child abuse. And so it answers the question of why, when these lists are put out, why does it always feel like stuff is retracted or it's never as satisfying as everybody hopes? It seems pretty simple. The story is just if they were to really release everything, I'm sure any really incriminating stuff about someone that's still in power or still around, I'm sure it was taken out years ago. But I would assume the reason everything is not just released, full disclosure, full transparency, have at it, is it's pretty simple. It's not a good PR story for the Israeli government and the United States government, because the story, if you think that they did work for the Israeli intelligence or the United States, it's that they were willing to sacrifice countless American young girls in order to gain blackmail material to control powerful people. And that's an incredibly evil and nightmarish thing to do. And in Virginia Giuffre's, even in her Instagram post, I didn't know how her life has been going or anything, but the way her post reads, it seems like she's separated from her husband and she doesn't see her kids all that regularly. And, I don't know what's going on, but that's what happens when you traffic these girls and you abuse them and you yank them here and you make them do this there and you threaten them. Their life ends up pretty awful a lot of the time. And that story coming out full disclosure is a really bad look for the intelligence agencies that they were willing to do it. And so that's why, in my opinion, that it's always really kind of that doesn't feel like the big reveal, the big disclosure with the list, and that's why no one gets arrested, and it just kind of disappeared in a puff of smoke. And I have another video I did on my Patreon where I talked about how, which I think I'm going to post maybe even on the main channel, but I talked about how the wanting to ban TikTok, it's almost all related in my opinion, like wanting to ban TikTok and the college kids on campus that are being arrested right now for just verbally criticizing Israel or putting out an op-ed. Listen, if you take over a college building and you hold people in the building that don't want to be held there, you hold them captive and you break windows, you got what's coming. You're going to get what's coming to you, but you should be able to stand out on the quad and scream and criticize Israel or write an op-ed. This is America. You get to say and write whatever you want. But I did a video about how even though I'm not a TikToker and I don't spend any time on TikTok, and I wouldn't recommend that people that I love get on TikTok if you're not already on it or addicted to it already. But I strongly feel in a free country that if someone wants to get on TikTok, it's their decision whether they should get on TikTok. But the reason the calls to ban TikTok here in the United States, and this is all in that video, it's not because China owns it and the privacy thing. It's after October 7th, there has been an explosion of what they consider anti-Semitic stuff on TikTok. And so a lot of the same people that want to control the PR for Israel, especially in the West, are going, we got to ban this thing.
You need to ban TikTok once and for all. And let me tell you why. For every 30 minutes that someone watches TikTok every day, they become 17% more anti-Semitic, more pro-Hamas based on doing that.
And I think the ridiculous arrest of college kids on American college campuses for simply verbally criticizing Israel and writing an op-ed, I think comes out of the same thing. It's a desperate attempt to regain the narrative, probably right now, since October 7th, and the fact that Twitter is kind of a free-for-all, TikTok is kind of a free-for-all. There's no one on the reins for that. I would say for the first time in my life, Israel has completely lost control of the narrative. And a big part of that is you go back to like the late 90s or early 2000, reach was very much controlled. The amount of people that could reach a lot of people, either through the news or through a very popular paper, was very small. And even 10 years ago, there were some people that had huge social media accounts, but then it dropped off really quick. It was like the Kardashians had 20 million and then it fell off. Well, now times have changed, and a lot of people have a lot of reach, and stories that would have been either not covered at all or that would have been covered very quickly and then on to something else. Now they can continue to go viral on Twitter and TikTok day after day and week after week. And it's created a big PR problem for Israel. And like I said, I think a lot of this stuff is just a desperate effort to regain control of the narrative. And it's going to be interesting. But I'm going to post, I think, that TikTok video. It's a Patreon episode, but I'm thinking of posting a couple Patreon episodes on the main channel. But anyway, keep an eye open for that. Wild story with this bus accident and everything. I'm going to cut it off there. I love you all. See you next time. Why? Stiven Y. Shami.